With the Switch 2 now released, many want to know how it compares in performance and graphics quality to other systems. While of course we can always compare it to the original Nintendo Switch, many want to see how it stacks up against the latest from Sony and Microsoft, the PS5 and Xbox Series X, and also whether it would be better matched against the other two's last-gen systems, the PS4 and Xbox One. For this quick inside look, we will take a look at how Fortnite performs and looks across the Nintendo Switch 2, Switch 1, Xbox One and Xbox Series X. Starting here with the lobby, just to show you the immediate differences in resolution. So from left to right, we have the Nintendo Switch 1, specifically the OLED model, with a docked dynamic resolution reaching highs of 880p and targeting 30 FPS. Next along, we have the Xbox One, specifically a day one console from 2013, with a dynamic resolution reaching highs of 900p and targeting 60 FPS. Next is the new one, the Switch 2, with a docked dynamic resolution reaching highs of 1224p and targeting 60 FPS. Finally, the Xbox Series X, with a dynamic resolution reaching highs of 2160p or 4K and targeting 60 FPS. While there are more powerful consoles out there, such as the PS5 Pro, the Switch 2 is never expected to reach anywhere close to that system, so the Xbox Series X is as high up as we need to go. The Series X footage should also be almost identical to a base PS5 console. Unfortunately, I no longer have my PS4 Pro, so I couldn't compare with that system, which is what many believe the Switch 2 is most closely compared to. In terms of numbers, the PS4 Pro runs Fortnite at a dynamic resolution reaching highs of 1080p and targeting 60 FPS. So on numbers, the Switch 2 theoretically outperforms the PS4 Pro in Fortnite. So on to the actual comparison. The Switch 2 footage will remain on the left side of the screen throughout. First off, we'll be comparing it to the Xbox Series X version. Of course, the Series X runs at a higher resolution, but there's also other things to notice, such as a higher texture resolution. Certain other lighting effects, such as shadows, are also higher quality on the Series X. The grass on the floor, displaying a form of foliage, does not appear to be different between the two. Looking at the reflections on this swamp water, you can see that there are clearer reflections on the Xbox Series X side. On the Series X you can see many distant objects still being reflected in the water. Next up, we'll compare it to the original Nintendo Switch. As you can see, the Switch 2 is a massive improvement, with double the frame rate and a much higher resolution. Textures are also much higher quality. While the original Nintendo Switch still has grass on the floor, it cuts off at a much shorter distance when compared to Switch 2. Shadows are also much lower quality on the Switch 1. The Switch 1 clearly more resembles a traditional mobile port of the game, whereas Switch 2 can much better compete with actual consoles. Taking a look at the differences between reflections in these versions, you can see that reflections are almost non-existent on the original Nintendo Switch, with the surface simply reflecting some light instead. On the Switch 2, you can see that there is some effect of a reflection, but it's nowhere near as good as the Series X. Next up, comparing to the original Xbox One. The Switch 2 and Xbox One quite closely match in texture resolution and foliage. The actual display resolution is of course much higher on the Switch 2, but other graphical quality settings seem to be pretty closely matched. It's possible that lighting and shadows are slightly better on the Switch 2, but due to the time of day differences in this footage, it's hard to tell. The reflections between these two are almost identical. An easy way in Fortnite of seeing the differences in the level of effects quality is by looking at the storm. On Xbox Series X, PS5 and on PC when the effects option is set to high or epic, the storm shows these big squares animating from a further distance. These squares do not appear on last gen systems and neither on Switch 2. This would line the graphical quality of Fortnite up on Switch 2 with that closely resembling the Xbox One and PS4. Looking at this short footage, it is easy to tell that the Switch 2 is nowhere near as graphically capable as the Xbox Series X, but it does provide a significant improvement over the original Nintendo Switch, and even quite a big improvement to many areas such as resolution over that of the Xbox One and PS4. Of course, this is going to depend on each game, but it could be expected that with the proper work put in, Switch 2 games could look better than PS4 and Xbox One games. They might not reach the same standards of quality as PS4 Pro and Xbox One X, but they could get quite close to those systems. Another reason it's good to see Fortnite running at this level of quality is because it uses the Unreal Engine 5, which is a very popular game engine amongst developers. If Epic can get Fortnite to run well on Switch 2, then other developers that are willing to put the time and effort into optimization could also receive similar results using Unreal Engine 5. Of course, it also depends on the style of game that you're going for. Since Fortnite isn't the most photorealistic game with realistic lighting and effects, it would still be easier to run than a lot of other AAA games that are coming out now. So in conclusion, I think we can safely place Switch 2's performance and graphics quality around that of the Xbox One X and PS4 Pro. Maybe being a little bit under in certain areas, and being closer to the original PS4 and Xbox One. But Switch 2 will have to keep up with the next generation Series X and PS5 in order to stay relevant. So it will have to be seen if developers can put in the time and effort to make their games run well on Nintendo's new system. I hope you enjoyed this quick inside look. Leave a like and subscribe for more in the future.